Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today we are going to be reviewing the Bricklink Designer Program Series 4 Wild West Train. And so this comes with 3,192 pieces. It is set number 910044. And like I said, it was from the 4th series of Bricklink Designer Program designed by Lucas. So we are going to get started on reviewing this, starting with the unboxing experience, the time-lapse build, the review. Then we're going to take a look at the minifigures, how to motorize it. We're going to look at the extra pieces and how it runs, and also my final thoughts as well as my perception of value with this product right here. So there's a lot to talk about today, so we are going to get started right now. All right, so this is the box here, and so as you can see, the set number is 910044 with 3,192 pieces, and this is from the Bricklink Designer Program Series 4, and so you can see the entire train here, all of the figures and horses, as well as the display stand and the windmill and water tower as well. You can see the Bricklink logo as well as the 25th anniversary of Bricklink right there, which is pretty exciting. The sides are black, and then the back here just has a close-up shot of some of the wagons here, and then also the tender. And I think this looks really good, and there's not much else to talk about with the box. It's just a plain white background like you can see with almost every other Bricklink Designer Program set. So with that being said, I'm going to cut open the tape and I will show you guys what the box contains. All right, so as you can see, these are all of the bags here, and this is bag number 40. So there are 40 bags for this entire set here, which seems like a lot. It seems pretty excessive, and there's also a bunch of extra bags over here with large pieces like flex tubes and larger plates, and then obviously the train wheels, train bogies, and things like that as well. And so there's even some horses in here, which is pretty cool to see. And so that is pretty much everything except for these couple sprues of track, plus the sticker sheet. Mine is a little bit bent, unfortunately, but it's not the end of the world. These don't look that bad. And then this card right here is the essentially thank you note that you get, and then on the back side here is the QR code that you can scan to get the instructions. And so with that, that is everything that came in the box here. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to get started on building this right now. All right, so as you can see in the time lapse here, we are starting with building the base, and then you build the windmill and the water tower, and then you work back to front on the train. So you make the box car, the passenger car, the flat car, and then the tender, and then the engine. And this was 40 bags in total, like you saw, and some of these bags were extremely tiny. I counted one bag and it had 12 pieces in it, and it's not an exaggeration. I did actually count it out, and that was appalling. It was such a waste of plastic, to be honest with you. I was shocked that they bagged it like that. They could have easily made this set at most 30 bags, but they made it 40. I don't know why they did that. That just seems like a waste of plastic to me, but it is what it is. And this build felt really dragged out. This took me about maybe 5.5 hours to put together. And the base went together fine, but the windmill and the water tower felt very repetitive, and it was not exactly enjoyable to put together. The box car and the passenger car were also a little bit repetitive, but a little bit more enjoyable to put together. And then the flat car went by really fast, and then the engine and tender also were pretty enjoyable, and they also went by really quickly. You didn't start building any of the actual train or rolling stock until bag 14, so that is just something to keep in mind if you are interested in building this yourself. You can skip to bag 14 in the instruction manual, or if you're building this yourself, just know that there is a lot of pieces that go into the base as well as the 2 side builds. All right, so the set is now complete, as you can see, and I have the train on the included base as well as the 2 side builds on the back of it, and then I have the 12 minifigs out front, plus 2 of the 3 horses, the third of which is in that last box car there. And so I'm actually going to go backwards according to the instructions, and so we're going to start with the locomotive, and then we're going to work through the rolling stock, and then we're going to go through the side builds, and then I will show you guys how to add a motor to the engine, and then we can see it going around my layout, and I'll give you guys my final thoughts. All right, so this is the locomotive here. As you can see, it is a 460, which means there are 4 leading wheels, 6 driving wheels, and then 0 trailing wheels in the back. And then there is a magnetic coupler here, which connects to the tender, and then the tender is separatable. And so we'll talk about the tender up close in just a second here, but I want to just focus on this first. And so as you can see, the cow catcher is built up at the front. I'll give you guys a little bit of a spin around here, and then we can go through and take a closer look at all of the details. But you can see that brick-built cow catcher up at the front, and you can see all of the other details on there. And I think the details that are here look really, really excellent. And then coming around to the other side here, you can see more of the exact same that you saw on the left side. And then coming to the back here, you can see a lamp as well as a couple other tools and things that are hanging off the back here. And then coming back over to this left side here, you can see that this is where we started. And now we can start to look at all of the details. And so what you'll notice right away is that the coupling rods here do actually work. So if I bring this along the track here, you can actually see that this works. And this actually works a lot better for me than the Orient Express does. I don't know if that's just because of the tolerance of each piece here, but either way, it works a lot better. And then you'll see all of the intricate details on this cow catcher. And you'll see a lot of details like this throughout the model here. And there is a lot that goes into just this cow catcher up at the front. Unfortunately, you can kind of see that red plate right in the middle there. So I will probably be swapping that out because I don't love how that looks. And at the train's widest here, it is actually about 10 studs wide if you include the handlebars here and also the studs that hang off the sides here. But the base itself is actually maxing out at 9. And then the cab back here maxes out at 7. And then it kind of goes in from there. You can fit a figure in here. There is not a lot of detail like I showed you guys, but what is here looks pretty good. And so I think it's nice. And there is also a nice lamp up top here. And there is a couple of gold accents as well with the bell. And then also this up here. And then also the stickers on either side here. And so the train number is 44. And then you'll see the 44 also on the tender as well. And we'll take a look at that in just a second. But you can see all of the details here, like the funnel is a nice inverted technique here. And there's a lot of intricate details with the flex tubing and the droid arms and all of the other things like that. And so with that, we can go ahead and we can bring back the tender here. And we're going to take a look at that separately. And then I will show you guys it together once more. And so this is the tender right here. Right off the bat, I don't love the bogie setup here, but this is because this is the car that's going to get motorized. And so you can just take this off right here and then replace it with the powered up motor. And then you place the powered up battery box inside of here. This comes off and then you can place it in there. And then that is pretty much that. So that's why this looks like this. I'm probably going to end up changing this and I'll explain that later on in the video. But just for right now, you can see most of the stickers go into this right here. So you'll see 4 stickers on this side, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then coming to the back here, you'll see 1. And then that same design is repeated over here. And so with that, that is almost everything on the model. There's not a lot going on with the tender here, but you'll see some nice coal built up here. And then this is removable, like I said, so you can put the powered up battery box in there. And then you'll see the hole coming through the backside or underside of the tender. And that is for the wire so that the powered up bogie can go through, the wire can go through and connect to the hub. And then so with that, you can see that the 3 track segment long train there looks pretty good. And so this is about 15 inches right here with the locomotive and the tender. So with that, we can go ahead and we can move on to the next piece of rolling stock. And so this is the first piece of rolling stock that we have. And this is just a simple flat car with some flex tubing on the side. And then there is a piano on top, which is actually a pretty nice build here. It's fairly simple, but it does have the feet pedals as well as some keys on here. And I think it looks pretty good. And then the legs just got stuck to the flat car there. And then you'll see a safe on here, which does actually work. So if I see if I can take this 2x3 plate off here and then see if I can get the safe out. Hopefully this works here, but maybe not. I wanted to try and get this on camera for you guys so you can see what this looks like. But this is the safe here up close. And so you can see there's a nice door on it. And then on the back is just some 2x4 tiles. and then a couple jumpers on top for that 2x3 plate. And so this does open up to reveal a gold ingot and also a $100 bill right above it. And I think this is pretty cool. The space in here is limited because everything is brick built, but I do think that what is here looks pretty good. And then coming back to the rest of the flat car here, you'll see some barrels and boxes and things. These are all empty. Not a single one contains anything, which I guess is fine. It doesn't necessarily need to have anything, but it would have been nice to have those extra details in there. But putting all of this back, I did this backwards. Putting everything back, you can see just how simple and small this flat car actually is. It is only about 1 track segment long, which is about 16 studs. So that is your measurement for you, in case you guys were wondering. But with that, there's not much else to talk about here. This bogie setup is a little bit different than the tender and also different than the other ones that you'll see later in just a second. This has the 2 bogie assemblies right next to each other here. So you'll see 1 and then 2. Whereas on the other ones, you'll see 1, a gap with some detail, and then a second one. So just wanted to point that out because it is a little bit different. But with that, we can go ahead and we can move on to the next piece of rolling stock. So the next piece of rolling stock here is the 1 passenger car included with the set. And so as you can see, this is just about 2 track segments long. It's a little bit shorter than that, but that is quite all right. And so as you can see, there is a little landing out here for patrons to stand. And then there is also an opening door, and it is the exact same on the other side. But unfortunately, this door actually doesn't open all that much. And so I'll kind of come around this side to show you a better angle. So this door opens a little bit here, and then that is it, which isn't even enough for 1 figure to stand there. So that is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. But now coming through to the rest of the model here, you'll see some more stickers here with the Brick Express like you saw on the tender, and then more of these patterns here. There was about 12 of this exact sticker in the set. So you just pretty much rinse and repeat these stickers on different pieces of the model. And then you will see the brown accents as well. And then you'll see a bunch of dark brown windows, which I think looks really, really good. Coming around the other side here is exactly the same, but there is a little bit of weathering on the top. So you can see instead of all black, there's a couple dark gray spots as well. So I think that looks pretty good. And then coming back around this side, you can take the top off, which has the lamps on either end, as well as part of the pillars. And so then coming into the interior here, there is no easy way to get access to this, but you can kind of just shove your hands in there and kind of hope for the best. But there is, I'm going to take this out because it's pretty tough to see. But this is a nice little build for a table. So this is the table leg, and then the medium nougat is actually the tabletop. And then there's this little lamp off to the side here. And you get 3 of those, 1 for each set of booths here. So I think that is pretty cool. And then trying to put this back in there just because it's resting only by a jumper. So there's that. And then there is this little, this is actually one of my favorite details of the entire set, is this right here. This is a luggage rack, so an overhead rack you can put all your stuff in, which I think is really, really neat. And so that is actually almost everything in this model here. You will see, I don't know how easy it is to see in there, but there is right under the windows here is a bunch of ingots lining the back of the wall there. And then there is also 2 booths in dark green, and I think those look pretty good. They're a little square, but I think it works, and I think it looks pretty good. And then, like I said, the doors are brick built, and then that is pretty much that there. And then coming to the underside here, you can see a little bit of undercarriage detail, along with these different bogies that I was talking about. And you'll notice how stiff some of these actually are. This is the exact same connection that the Orient Express had to the coaches, and surprisingly, that one, the bogies rolled completely freely, whereas this, I feel like I have to move them manually in order to get them to actually turn, whereas on the Orient Express, they just fell with gravity. So that is unfortunate to see, but you will notice that detail I was talking about here with the axle, a little bit of a gap, and then the other one right there. So I think that looks pretty good. But with that, we can move on to the final piece of rolling stock. And so here is the boxcar, which is the final piece of rolling stock. And as you can see, it has a lot of detail on this. All of these panels here are built with the studs not on top technique. And so all the plates are facing one direction off to the side here. And I think it looks really, really good. And then kind of spinning this around for you, you can see the ladder on the front. There is also one on the back as well. And then this side here does not have an opening door. So it is just 3 panels there. And then there is a little window up at the back here, and then another ladder. And so there's not a lot to talk about with the exterior of this, but the roof also has some weathering to it as well. You notice most of it is dark gray with a little bit of light gray and also some dark orange. And then also the windows up at the top as well for some ventilation. As for the interior of the boxcar, you can open the sliding door here, which actually slides pretty well. Or you can open up the roof on the top here, and then so there's a little bit of a hole in here so that light can actually go through this, which is pretty neat. And so that is pretty cool there, but opening this up a little bit, you can see the interior details there. There's a bunch of stuff on the wall, and I already took out the horse so that you guys can get a better look in there, but there's a bunch of hay also on the wall there, and then there's a bunch of stuff on this side here, like chests and crates and barrels and sacks and things like that. And so I think that is a really, really nice detail in there, although it does take up a lot of pieces and a lot of space. So that is something to keep in mind as well. But then the underside here has the exact same details that the passenger car did, and then the same exact bogies as well. And so other than that, you can just put the horse in there like so that it's actually eating some of the hay. But that is pretty much it there. There's not a whole lot to it other than that. So with that being said, we can move on to talk about the side builds. Starting with the windmill here, you can see that it is built up on this little base here, and the structure itself is not only built up with a little bit of these Technic pieces, but also with these bars and clips here, giving it a pretty sophisticated look, and I think it actually looks pretty good. And then the base is kind of just to simulate sand and a little bit of rock here, and then there's some nice plants here with surprisingly green bushes. I don't know why they chose green instead of reddish brown. They have reddish brown, and in fact there's a reddish brown bush on the other side build as well, so I don't know why they did that. But the water trough here looks pretty good with the pump, it looks like, on the side. I think that looks pretty good. And then there's a bottle down here as well. And then the actual windmill itself does spin, and it does rotate a full 360 degrees. And so that works pretty good. You can spin it both ways, obviously. So that's pretty good. There's not a whole lot to talk about here, so we're just going to move on to the other side build right now. And that other side build is, of course, the water tower here. As you can see, it's built up on the same style of base, and it's actually the same size as well. But the build itself on the top is much bigger and much more dense. And so you'll see some crates in there with some bottles, the reddish brown bush that I was talking about, a snake, a skull here, and then a nice built up cactus as well. Some more plant details, a couple barrels and things like that. And then also a little bit more rock detail. And then you'll notice the ladder. And then you'll notice some more of the lattice structure right there. And then you'll actually see the water spout on the side here. And this build is actually fairly sturdy. It might not look it, but it actually is, which is pretty good. And then the actual water tower itself here is a pain to build. To be totally honest with you, it is very involved, and it uses hundreds of pieces just in this little section up top here. And while it does look good when it's done, it is a pain to put together, especially these 1x8 tiles here. The more you put on, at least in my experience, the more tiles you put on, the more likely the other ones are to fall off. So that was not entirely fun to put together, but once it's done, they all stay on pretty good, and it looks pretty good as well. And so with that, that is pretty much that side build done. So now we can take a quick look at the base for the train. We can take a look at the minifigures, the extra pieces, and then we can see it running around the layout. The base itself is pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory, and there are 8 total track segments here. But what is really interesting about this is that there are 4 different sections here. And so you can split this up modularly, and you can kind of spin them around if you want. But I think it's really convenient. Instead of having one massive diorama for it, you can actually split it apart and put it into storage in case you don't want to put it on a shelf. And I think that's great. I thought that was a really, really nice touch. Whereas the Orient Express one is just one giant module. And so you have to keep that as one unit unless you take it apart. So that is something to note as well. I don't love the ties, the rail ties on this, but I just am not a fan of the 2x4s personally. So that's personal preference, but anything more detailed than this would have inflated the part count unnecessarily beyond what it already is. All right, so here are the first 6 minifigures of the total 12 in the set, and I think these 6 look pretty good. The torsos seem to match the era that we're going for here in the Wild West theme, and also the figures themselves feel like they belong on a train like this. And so I think overall these figures look good. I like the details with each of them, and they're different enough to where they can be doing different things around the diorama that you've built up over the course of the set, and so I think it works. And also, none of these figures, just to note, have no alternate faces. So all of these 6, what you see with their faces is what you get. And so with that, we can take a look at the other 6 starting right now. All right, so these other 6 figures here have a little bit more going on with them. One of them has an alternate face, which you will see in just a second, and 3 of them have dual molded legs, which is always a nice bonus. However, I grouped the 6 of these together due to the fact of their torsos, and their torsos are, unfortunately, they just don't work for me personally in the Wild West theme. The 2 on the left look like pirates, and I just can't get past that. The 2 in the middle are okay. They're not ideal for a scenario like this. And I guess the 2 on the right could pass as something that you'd see in the Wild West, but I don't really buy it personally. And so these 6 figures, while some of them do look pretty good overall, they're just a miss for me personally. And then here are the 3 horses included in the set. 2 of them have baggage included, and they're surprisingly not using the pre-molded saddle piece. Instead, they are brick building it with brackets and other things like that. And so this first horse here just has a gun on one side and nothing on the other, and then you can actually place a figure in it. And then the second horse has no spot for a minifig, but it has more going on with it, so you can hold the gun and also with the sack as well. And then the third horse doesn't have anything on it. It is just the brick and the tile to make it look like the horse has nothing on him. And you can do the same with these bricks and tiles for the other 2 horses as well, in case you didn't want to have them carrying anything. So here are the extra pieces here, and so as you can see, there are a lot of them in a set like this. There's a lot of small pieces, a lot of intricate details, and then also the sticker sheet as well had a fair number of things on it, but it wasn't the end of the world. They didn't feel like they slowed the build down at all, so that was pretty nice. And so now here I am trying to motorize the tender here. There are no official instructions, at least that I found, to motorize the tender here, but it was a pretty self-explanatory experience. You just had to take the bogie off and then take out these 4 pillars and then add in the battery box that is connected to the actual bogie itself. And so that is pretty self-explanatory. And then the cable just goes in that crevice where the coal is hanging out the front. It's not a super difficult thing to do, but this bogie doesn't really want to turn all that much. So I'll be curious to see how it runs around the layout. And so now here is the moment of truth here. I have the Wild West train connected to my powered up controller. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start it up for you. Now this train is not the best runner. Surprisingly, the wheels, the driving wheels do tend to slip from time to time, but that's just because there's no rubber bands on them. You could add your own, but I don't own any personally. The only 4 that I have are on my Orient Express, and I don't want to swap them over. So that is pretty much that. And then the tender, unfortunately, has this single axle bogie, which loves to turn even when it's not on a curve. So it just rotates freely and it just hits switches and curves and it just does not cooperate at all. And so unfortunately, that is just really not helping its case at all. I will be having to go in and modify these a bunch, but overall, the 3 pieces of rolling stock roll great. They are a little stiff around the curves, but that's just, I think, piece tolerance. And I think I just got unlucky with the batch that they used for my set. And so overall, the rolling stock rolls good. And then the actual engine and tender itself leave quite a bit to be desired when going around a layout. The locomotive itself doesn't really go over S-curves that great, but if you're just going on straights and standard R40 curves like I have in my city, it works just fine. All right, so now that we have talked about the entire set as a whole, we've looked at this locomotive, we looked at the rolling stock, we looked at the side builds, the train base, we looked at the minifigures and the extra pieces, and we've even seen the train go around my layout. Now is the time to talk about price and value. And so first things first, I want to say that I really like this train. I like the actual locomotive itself. I think this is a phenomenal build. It surprised me through and through. I was very curious to see how this was going to get put together, and it blew me away. I thought this was a really nice model. I thought it looked good. The build was good. The build came very late, though, surprisingly. Of the 40 bags in this entire set, the first 13 were for the base for the train, the windmill, and the water tower. That is over 30% of the set in the side builds, essentially. And so that's really ridiculous to me personally. And then you build the boxcar, the passenger car, the flat car, and then the tender, and then you end with the locomotive. And so I spent about 5.5 hours building all of this entire set here. And honestly, the first 12 or 13 bags felt like a drag. The base went together fine. I didn't have a problem with that. But the repetition between this as well as this was not very fun. And also building the water tower itself, this dense chunk up at the top here was not fun to put together, at least for me personally. This did not feel like a Lego set. It felt more like a rebrickable model that you'd pay instructions for. This doesn't work for me personally. And so that's going to lead into my analysis on price and value. While I do like most of the things here, this needs to change. And the price that I paid was $280 US. That's the price that I went for crowdfunding. And then the prices that you would be paying now are probably closer to 300, maybe even 320. And then eventually down the road, it might go as high as $350 for this. And unfortunately, that price is inflated by the extremely high piece count, which is caused in part by these. And if I was designing this set, I would have done this completely differently. I would have omitted the 2 of these. I would have taken those out of the picture. I would have also gotten rid of probably 2 or 3 of the figures. If you just pick 3 random ones, you could take those out. And if you even want, you could get rid of a horse as well. And so then that would hopefully lower the cost of this as well. And then this right here is also something that I would either change or get rid of entirely. This flat car here is much too short. And if it was double the length, if you just kind of rest this on top here, if it was double the length and it was at the very least as long as the passenger car or the box car, but I would have loved to have seen this be twice as long as what it is right now. I think that would have looked great. And then you could go ahead and you can put pretty much anything you want on this. You can add your own stuff to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be full of stuff if it's twice as long, but this I just don't see any value in personally. The builds are cool. I really do like the safe, but this just doesn't work for me. Again, it is inflating the piece count. And so if you take this out as well, even if you don't change it, you just omit it entirely. And so now you're left with this, which is 2 pieces of rolling stock, the engine and the tender. You have the train base, you have a couple horses, you have 9 minifigures, as well as these extra pieces that I have down here because I still have the motor in the tender here. And so I think this could have easily gone for $200. If Bricklink wanted to be generous, they could have even made it $180. But even still, for $180 or $200 or whatever this would have gone for, I would have loved to have seen some changes. Namely, in the tender here, I don't like this. This just does not work for me. The proportions of it don't work. The bogie, this up at the front here, is terrible. It does not work when going around the layout, as you guys saw. And the powered up bogie at the back doesn't really like turning all that much, but there's not a whole lot I can do about that, unfortunately. And then the coal up at the top, I would have loved to have seen a wood cache instead of coal. I think that would have made more sense for the era. And so that's what I would have done personally. I would have made the set much smaller. I would have made a few minor tweaks here and there, and I would have dropped the piece count as much as I possibly could, because there are a number of pieces in this passenger car that are just completely unnecessary and details that you would never even notice, even if you actively opened this up and looked inside and placed minifigures in and all of that. And honestly, there are 2 types of people that would want this set. They are train fans or Wild West fans. I happen to be a little bit of both, and so picking this up seemed like a no-brainer back when the Bricklink Designer Program Series 4 went out for crowdfunding. But regardless of which of the two camps you fall in, you are buying a set that you want to be complete. And so with that, you would want a train, you would want some rolling stock, and you would want a base to go along with it. Even if that base isn't fancy, even if you never use the base, you still have the pieces to use in other mocks or things like that. Or you could display it on a shelf with a different train or whatever you want. But this would be a complete set. That is the bare minimum that you would need, and I think what is on your screen right now actually does that pretty well. Now, adding all of the other stuff back into the picture here, like the really undersized flat car, as well as these two side builds here, you essentially just inflate the piece count and you inflate the price, and it just makes it inaccessible for a lot of people. I think if this train was $200 without all the stuff that I just added back to the screen here, and also the figures and stuff as well, I think this would have gone over a lot better, at least for me personally. I can't speak on anyone else's experience other than my own. I think this would have gone over a lot better. I think the build would have gone a lot smoother. I think the price would have gone down significantly, and so much so, in fact, that people could actually afford it that were priced out by the $280 price tag that this had. And so overall, my experience with this, I was expecting to love this. My experience was not entirely positive, unfortunately. And while I do like what I see, I will definitely be making some modifications. I actually already went and modified the locomotive itself. I replaced one of the axle pins in tan with a 6-long axle in black because the wheels need to be quartered from each other. And if you don't know what quartering means, it essentially means that one side of the train, the wheels are turned 90 degrees from the other side, and that is in real life so that the pistons could actually move and the train is actually not going to stutter when it moves. But on a locomotive like this, that is just a toy or a model, that is not exactly required, but it is A, for realism, and B, so that the train does not actually stutter when it goes along the tracks. And so I don't know why that wasn't done right out the gate. I only did it to one axle. You could do it to all three pretty easily. And I do also plan to make a couple other modifications as well. I will probably be expanding this out if I do choose to keep it together at all. And I also plan on modifying the wood cache here, or the tender, two-way wood cache. And there are a number of other modifications that I plan to make, and actually some people on the internet have already gone and done so. There's a user on Reddit called Toledo Rails. I will leave his post on the LEGO Train subreddit down in the description, and in that you can check out his modifications to the locomotive. I plan on doing similar things to it because I think it'll look a lot better, and also this right here will not stay. This is not going to stay on my copy of the model. And so other than modifications, I might go ahead and make a second box car. I don't know if I would make a second passenger car because then you would also need the stickers to go along with it. So I don't know if that's entirely realistic, but the box car, you could easily make a second one if you have enough pieces. But the problem is the weight. The problem with this is actually the weight of the model here. I'll put all the conversions in grams on the screen, but this weighs 16 ounces. These two pieces of rolling stock here are about 2/3 the length of the Orient Express coaches. And so if I just kind of bring this into frame here, you get everything else out of the way, you can see that the passenger car here is about 2/3 the length of the Orient Express coach. And so the box car is 16 ounces. This is about 15.6 ounces. And then the Orient Express coaches are 24 and about 22 respectively. And surprisingly, these are the same density as the Orient Express coaches, and so that was really shocking to me. And so as much as I would love to have 4 or 5 of these box cars lined up and then going around a layout, this would be so heavy that you would need at least 2 motors to get that done. This one motor here in the tender would not be enough for that, so you would need to get a second one, or you would need 2 trains back to back or something like that. And so that is just something to keep in mind as well if you guys have this set or you're looking to just get the instructions and build as many of copies of these pieces of rolling stock as you can. Just keep that in mind because that is going to get expensive really quick, and also it's going to get heavy really quick as well. And so overall, my experience with this was not as positive as I thought it would be. Does not mean it is a bad set. It is just overly inflated with side builds and all of the extra pieces as well. This set came with 3,200 pieces thereabout, and the set number was 910044. It is a Wild West train from Bricklink Designer Program Series 4. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video as well as the train running around the city. I'll cut to that right now so you guys can actually take a look at the train going around a little bit more. And so once again, seriously, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any feedback for me onto this train, if you have it or if you were considering picking it up on Bricklink or eBay or something like that, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be pretty curious to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Let me know if I am justified in wanting the set to be smaller or if you think the windmill and water tower actually make decent additions to the set as a whole. But seriously, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you found this informative or at the very least entertaining. And that is it from me. I'll let the train pass by one more time, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye for now.